The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, threatening and dark. "That dress isn't leaving this house, and neither are you." Marcus froze in the hallway, his hand still raised to knock on his boss's door. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but now he couldn't unhear what was clearly a threat. As a single father who depended on this job to support his daughter, Marcus faced an impossible choice: walk away and pretend he heard nothing, or step into a situation that could cost him everything. If you're feeling that chill down your spine already, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories that explore the complex choices we make when faced with danger and moral dilemmas. Your support helps us bring these powerful narratives to life. Marcus Jenkins had been working as an executive assistant at Meridian Enterprises for just over 8 months. At 42, he wasn't the typical candidate for the position, but after his wife Lisa's death 3 years ago, he'd been forced to rebuild his life from scratch. Their daughter Zoe was now 12, navigating the turbulent waters of middle school while Marcus navigated the equally treacherous waters of single parenthood and career change. His boss, Catherine Winters, was the chief marketing officer at Meridian, brilliant, demanding, and notoriously private. Most employees kept their distance, but Marcus had developed a cautious rapport with her. He respected her drive and efficiency, and she seemed to appreciate his reliability and discretion. That Saturday afternoon shouldn't have found Marcus at the office at all. But Zoe had a sleepover at her friend's house, and Catherine had called him in a panic about missing files for Monday's presentation. She'd invited him to her penthouse to help organize the materials, insisting it was an emergency. "Just bring your laptop and the Westfield portfolio," she'd said. "I'll make it worth your overtime." The penthouse was exactly what Marcus had expected: sleek, modern, and impeccably decorated, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Catherine had greeted him in casual clothes, jeans and a silk blouse instead of her usual power suits, and seemed uncharacteristically nervous. They'd worked for about an hour when Catherine excused herself to take a phone call in her bedroom. Marcus continued organizing slides until he realized he needed her input on the market projection graphs. That's when he'd approached her bedroom door and heard the voice, male, threatening, controlled. "That dress isn't leaving this house, and neither are you." Catherine's response was too quiet to hear, but the man's voice rose again. "You think I don't know what you're planning? The files, the meetings with the board members? You're not testifying, Catherine. I've worked too hard to let you ruin everything now." Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He knew Catherine had been involved in some kind of corporate investigation, but she'd been tight-lipped about the details. Now it seemed clear, she was a whistleblower, and someone was trying to silence her. His first instinct was to back away quietly and leave. He had Zoe to think about. What would happen to her if he got involved in something dangerous? But then he heard a crash from inside the room, followed by Catherine's muffled cry. Before he could second-guess himself, Marcus knocked loudly on the door. "Catherine? Is everything okay? I need your input on those projections." Silence fell inside the room. Then the door swung open, revealing Catherine with a forced smile and slightly disheveled hair. Behind her stood a tall man in an expensive suit, James Harrington, the CEO of Meridian Enterprises. "Marcus, I didn't realize you were still here," Catherine said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "James and I were just discussing some sensitive company matters." Harrington's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Marcus, is it? Catherine speaks highly of your efficiency. I'm sure you understand the need for discretion in our line of work." "Of course, sir," Marcus replied, meeting the man's gaze. "I was just leaving, actually. Unless you need anything else, Catherine." A silent plea passed between them as Catherine hesitated. "Actually, could you help me find that market analysis we were working on earlier? I think I left it in the kitchen." "Certainly," Marcus said, understanding her request for what it was, a lifeline. "In the kitchen," Catherine whispered urgently, "you need to go. Now. Take my laptop and the blue folder in my bag. If anything happens to me." I'm not leaving you here with him, Marcus interrupted. You don't understand. James has been embezzling millions from the company pension fund. I have proof, and I'm supposed to meet with federal investigators on Monday. He found out somehow. Marcus thought of Zoe, of the promise he'd made to his late wife to always do the right thing, of the countless times he'd told his daughter to stand up for others. Call the police, he said. I'll stall him. Catherine shook her head. He has people everywhere, including the local police. The only way is to get that evidence to the feds. Then we both leave. Now. Harrington's voice cut through their whispered conversation. Is everything all right in there? I have a car waiting, Catherine. We should continue our discussion at my place. Marcus made a split-second decision. He grabbed Catherine's laptop and the blue folder, stuffing them into his messenger bag. Then he pulled out his phone and started a live video, positioning it partially hidden on the counter. Mr. Harrington, he called out, stepping back into the living room. I was just telling Catherine about my daughter's school project on corporate leadership. She's very interested in business ethics. Harrington's expression darkened. Is that so? Well, perhaps another time. Catherine and I have urgent matters to discuss. Actually, Marcus continued, moving casually toward the front door, I was hoping to ask you a few questions myself. I've been studying the company's quarterly reports, and I noticed some interesting patterns in the pension fund allocations. The CEO froze, his hand twitching slightly toward his jacket pocket. You should be careful about making accusations, Marcus. Especially when you have a young daughter to support. The threat hung in the air, confirming everything. Marcus felt cold fear wash over him, but he kept his expression neutral. I'm not making accusations, sir. Just observations. The same observations that federal investigators might make when they review the documents Catherine has been preparing. You have no idea what you're talking about, Harrington snarled, dropping all pretense of civility. He pulled a gun from his jacket pocket. Neither of you is leaving until I have every copy of those files. Catherine gasped, but Marcus remained surprisingly calm. It's too late, James. The video I just started is streaming live to my cloud account. My daughter knows to contact my lawyer if I don't check in with her by 8 o'clock tonight. It was a bluff. Zoe was 12 and had no such instructions, but Marcus delivered it with conviction born of desperation. Harrington's eyes darted to the kitchen counter where the phone was partially visible, its camera lens gleaming. For a moment, indecision played across his features. That moment was all they needed. Catherine lunged for her purse on the coffee table, pulling out a small canister of pepper spray. Before Harrington could react, she sprayed directly at his face. He howled in pain, the gun clattering to the floor as his hands flew to his burning eyes. Marcus kicked the weapon away and grabbed Catherine's arm. Run! They burst out of the penthouse and into the emergency stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time. Behind them, they could hear Harrington shouting into his phone, presumably calling for backup. My car's in the garage, Marcus panted as they descended. We can't take it, Catherine replied. They'll be watching for it. We need to disappear. 17 floors later, they emerged into the underground parking garage, both gasping for breath. Instead of heading for his sedan, Marcus led them to a service exit that opened onto a side street. Where to now? He asked. Catherine looked at her watch. I have a contact in the FBI. If we can reach her, we'll be safe. But we need to get across town without being seen. For the next several hours, they moved through the city like ghosts, taking the subway, switching to buses, walking through crowded shopping centers to lose any potential tail. Marcus called his neighbor to check on Zoe, making up a story about working late and asking if his daughter could stay with them overnight. The guilt of lying warred with his need to keep her safe by staying away. By nightfall, they had reached a nondescript hotel on the outskirts of the city. Catherine's FBI contact, a stern-faced woman named Agent Rivera, met them in a room booked under a false name. "You've both taken an enormous risk," Rivera said after reviewing the evidence on Catherine's laptop. "Harrington has connections in very high places. But this," she tapped the screen displaying complex financial transactions, "this is enough to bring him down." "What happens now?" Marcus asked, exhaustion finally catching up with him. "You both enter protective custody until the arrest and initial hearings. After that, witness protection may be necessary, depending on how far this conspiracy extends." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Witness protection? But my daughter." "She'll come with you, of course," Rivera assured him. "We'll create new identities, relocate you somewhere safe." Catherine touched his arm gently. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I never meant to drag you into this." He thought of the life he'd built for Zoe after Lisa's death, her school, her friends, the house filled with memories of her mother. All of it would be gone. But then he thought of what Lisa would say if she were here, that some principles were worth any sacrifice, that showing Zoe what courage looked like was the greatest gift he could give her. "We'll be okay," he said finally. "Zoe's stronger than she looks. So am I." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of safe houses, sworn statements, and tearful explanations to Zoe. To her credit, his daughter took the news with remarkable composure. Like witness protection in the movies, she'd asked over the secure phone line. "Do I get to pick my new name?" Marcus had laughed despite everything. "Within reason. Nothing like rainbow sparkles, okay?" The federal raid on Meridian Enterprises made national headlines. James Harrington and 3 board members were arrested for fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder. The pension funds were frozen pending investigation, leaving hundreds of employees in financial limbo. 6 months later, Marcus, now known as Mark Jennings, sat on the porch of a modest house in a small Oregon town, watching Zoe, who had settled on Zoe for her new identity, ride her bike down the quiet street. Catherine, now Kathy, was testifying in Washington that day, the culmination of a case that had exposed corruption reaching into the highest levels of corporate America. His phone buzzed with a text from her, "It's done. Guilty on all counts." A weight lifted from his shoulders. They weren't completely safe, people like Harrington had long memories and longer reach, but the worst was over. Somehow, in the chaos of their new life, something unexpected had blossomed between him and Catherine. Not quite romance, not yet, but a deep bond forged in shared danger and mutual respect. "Dad!" Zoe called, skidding to a stop in front of the house. "Mrs. Peterson says I can help with the community garden project." "Can I?" Marcus smiled. His daughter was thriving here, making friends and putting down roots in this new soil. "Absolutely. Just be home for dinner." As she pedaled away, he thought about the choice he'd made that day in Catherine's penthouse. One moment of courage had changed everything, had cost them their old lives but given them something precious in return, the knowledge that when it mattered most, he had done the right thing. Sometimes the most important journeys begin with a single step into danger, with words overheard in a hallway that cannot be unheard. For Marcus Jenkins, that journey had led him here, to this quiet porch in a town where nobody knew his real name, but where, perhaps for the first time, he truly knew himself. And in the end, isn't that what courage is all about? Not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. To stand up when it would be easier to walk away. To protect not just those we love, but the principles that make that love meaningful. As the sun set over his new hometown, Marcus whispered a promise to Lisa, wherever she was, "I'm teaching her to be brave, just like we talked about. I think you'd be proud." And somewhere in the gathering dusk, he could almost hear her reply, "I've always been proud. Of both of you."